Hello again. We learned in the last lesson or session in individualism, and individualism. I'm using that terminology loosely. It is, in all sense and purposes of the term, used in socialization as to put the action of the individual, the free action of the individual above that of the collective or the state, and focusing in on us as individuals being able to take control of our own lives, make decisions for the betterment of ourselves, and then that spreading abroad. And it goes back to the old saying, the old axiom that you change the world when you change yourself on the inside. And I believe that with all my heart. And that's where we're at in our lesson and in the state of our lives for those of us who've been institutionalized. And there again, that's a stigma. That word comes with it, a stigma. Because when someone says someone is institutionalized, it denotes that they are out of control, that they are, are mentally inept in some way. But it's not. It does not mean that. An institution or institutionalization is a way of life. When you were in whatever you were into, marriage, military, prison, those were subcultures inside of a larger culture. And as we stated earlier, just to recap on it and what we talked about in previous lessons. But we're going to take the stipulation and the stigma out of it that makes it negative and say, hey, we were in what we were in, now we're getting out of it. And and that's what, whenever you come to cognition and you realize something, you become aware of it. And and you become aware of the negative effects of something that happened to you, or a situation or lifestyle that you were in, you find out, hey, this wasn't beneficial for me. And that's said a lot in recovery programs, that, hey, you come to realize that, a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. I mean, those are some powerful words that that you need to be restored to sanity at one point, because things were chaotic and crazy. And not so much so as in a prison setting. Yes, chaotic, some crazy stuff goes on inside a prison. But inside of being locked up, you can function. And that's what happened when you were locked up and you made it through it, and now you get ready to get out. You function there because you allowed yourself to adapt to the environment. You allowed yourself to adapt to the environment, and you need to have done so to come out unscathed, to come out ready for the world. Now, let's help each other dislodge from having to adapt to that situation. Now it's time for us to realize that it's time to adapt to the outside world and outside society. And we must understand that we were socialized in there, and we learned things now, and also we went through a social and an emotional development to go through what we went through. And there is a direct link between the emotional conflicts that we went on in there, and the emotional conflicts that we're gonna, if we take some of that same stuff on the street, and to failure and going right back. That's what we want to stop. We want to stop recidivism and stop going back and forth to the same situation through education. Education, learning, be cognitively aware. Cognition is dealing with the mind, being aware, being focused on things that are actually happening in reality in your life. And there is a brand of therapy that is called cognitive therapy, and which is, and it tries to attempt to do. It takes negative patterns and thoughts about the self and the world and challenge those negative thoughts about the self and the world, and try to bring some order and alter those unwanted behaviors or patterns and bring them back so you can enjoy life, so you can be a part of a productive life, and that you can experience a free life. And that's what we're doing together. You are not in this alone. You have me, you have each other, you have loved ones, friends. The friends that you make are your family. The people that you surround yourself with that are positive, that becomes your family. That becomes of your cognitive therapy group. You know, you don't have to go inside a room to be in a group per se. You can form your own group, your own support system, and that's where we're at. We want to gather and collect our own support system so we can benefit in life and whatnot. But right now, we need to challenge those negative thoughts and those negative behavior patterns that we picked up along in this culture, subculture, so we won't take it out into the real world. Now, when we say it's negative, we say that the thoughts that we thought about ourselves and the world as a collective, and the negative behavior patterns, we say negative. We use the word negative. You know why it's negative? It was negative because it's not beneficial for you and productive in the society as a whole. And we say it was negative because the emotion and the backslash that it brought on the inside. It's negative when you feel, when somebody take all your clothes, when somebody take your name and give you a number, when someone have rule over you, tell you when to go to sleep, when to get up, when to sit down, they tell you when to shut up, and when you can talk. That's what happens. You know that's what happens. When they blow that whistle at count time, all's talking gotta stop. Very seldom. It's still far between that you're gonna get that situation in outside society, in the world where we live in. That's why it is negative. And if you go out there and every time you hear a whistle blow, you stand up and act like it's count time, you showing that you've been institutionalized. You had to do that in there. You had to stand up for count. And when the whistle blown, that means to be silent. That means to get up out of your bed and stand up. Hey, there's stories. I got homeboys who went through the situation that you going in and that you in, and the whistle, they had the TV on, and the whistle blew during the TV program, and they were sound asleep at home. The whistle blew, they jumped out of the bed and stood up for count. They were home, y'all. They've been home for a couple weeks. And man, when they looked around, they stood up and looked around, they said, man, I'm standing up for count. And then they looked at the TV on, man, and then it came to them, man, I'm not in that situation anymore. But what I'm saying is, now that you have the time, before you're transitioning out into the society, now you can be cognitively aware, get and talk to somebody else in the same situation that you've been in, because nobody knows best what you've been through except those who've been through it with you and that can talk to you and y'all can relate to each other. And to get with somebody that's on the same page, that's cognitively aware of the situation and what that they've been through and what you've been through. Now, there's some people that's been out and came back and before. They know a little bit more of the ropes on what goes on once they're out. You sometimes might be the first one. This is your first time, coming in and then having to go out. There's some other guys can tell you some stories about, what the other guy I told you about, what happened to him when the whistle blew on the TV. He stood up for count and he was at home. That's negative. That's why it's negative, because it's unbeneficial. And there's other things. There's a Stockholm syndrome. Look it up. People get into captivity and they start to identifying with their captors, and they start acting and thinking and loving their captors and treating them like their lords and masters, and sympathizing and empathizing with them instead of realizing, hey, you're not their family member. They don't love you. They got you in captive. You're in bondage here. You need to get out. You need to find a way out. But you know, all negativity, negative behaviors, you are a human being. And because you had to socialize in one situation, in one setting, and even some women went through some real bad abusive marriages and abusive relationships, it became institutionalized. Every time somebody come in and aggressive, reminds them of the situation that they were in, and they get afraid and they put their guards up, become defensive. And you tell, wait a minute, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not that person. That's what you need to realize. Everybody out here, the police on the street is not the CEO. You remember that? The person that you work for, your supervisor in your upcoming job, he is not your counselor and he's not the warden. That's not the warden. That's not the warden. That's why you got to be cognitively aware of you entering out in one place and you're going into another institution of life. The institutions of life are not damaging. It cannot be, and it can be. And you can relax and be assured that you are well capable of handling this situation. You're well capable of transitioning from one stage of life to another, from one stage of development to another. You got to get it down. You got to talk to each other. You cannot distance yourself from those fellows that are leaving the situation now. Your counselors and people on the street, your family members. You cannot isolate yourself any longer. I know there was times when you just got in the bed and you slept for days and you wanted to get away from the noise, and especially when you was in a dormitory situation. Just get away from the noise and stuff all the time. People talking, smelling the smells, and you just get away, get on the yard and sit down by yourself. Yeah. And then sometimes individuals, they did the opposite. They got with the crowd and with the noise so they can drown out the reality of being confined. And they got with the roughhousing, and they got with the rambunctiousness and the aggressive behavior. They got all with that so they can drown out what was actually going in on the backdrop, in the back scenes, and that was incarceration, institutionalization of any kind, and what was holding them captive in one situation. We as human beings seek to break free of our captivity, but in so many different ways. We seek to dislodge from that we are connected to, which keeps us in bondage. But so many times we do not break free. Even though we think in our mind that we have. So that is a session on social and emotional development that we went through. I did recap a little bit about institutionalization, and taking the negativity off. So that's what we did in this session. We tried to switch and slide right easily into the next session in socialization and emotional development, cognition, and challenging negative behaviors about the self and about the world around us. And now we're going to go into it just a little bit more as we talk about socialization and emotional development and individuality, individualism, about how to take responsibilities and for our own selves. Now we can make decisions and we can join the happy, the healthy, and the um, give it to me of life and hopeful.